Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're diving into a topic that's really dominating headlines and, frankly, a lot of global anxiety. That's the nuclear landscape in the Middle East, specifically, focusing on Iran and Israel.
Right.
You've probably heard the common narrative, Iran's nuclear ambitions. They're presented as this existential threat to Israel. But what if the reality is, well, far more complex, shaped by deep layers of theology, military strategy, and quite contested history? That's our mission for you today, to cut through some of the noise and really try to understand the surprising nuances here.
It's a crucial deep dive, absolutely. We'll be looking at whether Iran, with its nuclear capability, truly poses that kind of existential danger. We'll examine some maybe surprising barriers to actual nuclear use and question if these prevailing narratives we hear are they genuine military objectives or perhaps more about rhetoric?
Okay, so let's unpack this. Many people know Iran has a nuclear program, right?
Yeah.
But where did it truly begin? And maybe more importantly, how close are they now?
Right. Well, what's often surprising is that Iran's nuclear journey actually started way back, like in the 1950s, and with Western support initially. But after the 1979 revolution and then the Iran-Iraq War, things went underground. It went secret. They acquired illicit centrifuge technology. And today, well, despite Iran's claims, it's all peaceful. The International Atomic Energy Agency, the IAEA, cautions they possess enough uranium enriched to 60% for several bombs.
Several bombs. And how fast could they theoretically get one ready?
The estimates for breakout time that's getting the material ready for one bomb, it's potentially within a week.
Wow, a week. That's incredibly rapid. So
Right.
what about their stated intentions then? Are those clear? Especially when, like you said, we bring in the religious views.
That's where it gets really complex. You have the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC, in direct control, and some sources describe their program as always grounded on ambitions to weaponize, with the explicit aim sometimes stated as the annihilation of Israel. So this creates a very persistent, calculated ambiguity about what Iran really intends.
Okay, so ambiguity. But then how does Supreme Leader Khamenei's fatwa fit in? His religious decree from 2003. He's repeatedly said nuclear weapons are forbidden, haram under Islamic law, cites the Quran, verses against corruption on earth, harming innocents. How much, real-world weight does that carry?
That's a really important question. So while Khamenei's fatwa definitely serves as a religious prohibition, and let's be honest, a useful strategic political tool for negotiations, it's crucial to note it's not some kind of universal Islamic deterrent. It's not that simple. You have many Sunni and Salafi scholars, for example, who actually permit or even argue for the obligation to acquire WMDs for deterrence or even for victory, and sometimes with a, shall we say, high tolerance for collateral damage.
So it's not universally accepted within Islam itself. Does that mean the fatwa doesn't really matter in practice?
But here's where it gets truly fascinating and maybe a bit counterintuitive for many listeners. The profound sanctity of Al-Aqsa Mosque and Jerusalem. It's Islam's third holiest site. This could actually serve as a powerful self-deterrent for any Muslim actor, including Iran, against using WMDs in a way that would damage these incredibly revered sites. It's a kind of red line that often gets missed in the purely geopolitical analysis.
You're saying, hold on, even with all the aggressive rhetoric, this deeply held religious sanctity, the holiness of Jerusalem and Al-Aqsa, that could actually act as a brake, making a strike on Jerusalem strategically self-defeating for Iran. That's a really profound layer.
Yeah, precisely. It complicates the narrative. And you see hints of this sometimes. Iran's destruction of Zionism rhetoric, for instance, is often clarified by Khamenei himself. He says it means abolishing the imposed regime, not eliminating Jewish people per se. Yet Israeli leadership, especially under Prime Minister Netanyahu, often interprets this rhetoric as a literal, imminent existential threat. A threat to the state, the people, and this view is deeply fueled by historical anxieties, obviously the Holocaust, justifying preemptive actions. This gap in interpretation, the semantic gap, it creates a really dangerous ambiguity.
Okay, that leads us right into Israel's side. How does their military power, their own deterrence, play into this escalating dynamic? Because it sounds like there's a paradox here. Israel's conventional military superiority and its, unacknowledged Samson option nuclear deterrent, that idea of massive retaliation if its existence is threatened. It's aimed at stopping Iran from getting the bomb. But you're suggesting this might inadvertently create a commitment trap. What exactly is that?
A commitment trap, yeah. It's basically where actions you take to deter an adversary to prevent something bad, they can actually end up locking both sides into more extreme positions, maybe positions neither side actually wanted initially. So instead of deterring Iran, these actions, these threats, this pressure, it might paradoxically accelerate Iran's determination to get nuclear weapons. They might see it as the only ultimate deterrent left, especially if their regional proxy networks are being degraded.
So preventive action could actually backfire, reinforcing the very resolve you're trying to break. Okay, so for you listening to this, it means understanding that maybe a literal total destruction or ethnic cleansing of Israel by Iran, it might be militarily unrealistic, just given Israel's robust defenses, and perhaps theologically unlikely because of that Al-Aqsa red line we discussed. So wrapping this up, what does this all really mean for you, this whole existential threat narrative? It's clearly far more complex than just bombs and missiles. It's this dynamic interplay of perceived threats, yeah, but also deeply ingrained narratives on both sides, and this dangerous commitment trap, where actions meant to provide security might actually be fueling the fire.
Indeed. And it's important to remember, while these religious and secular narratives can absolutely fuel conflict, they also contain within them profound principles for peace and coexistence. You can look at history, like Muslim-Jewish cohabitation in Andalusia, or even modern interfaith dialogue efforts. They show there is a path. So this raises, I think, an important question for you to consider. Could there be a new security paradigm? One rooted not in mutual destruction, but maybe in something like deterrence by inclusion. Leveraging that interfaith dialogue, shared principles of human dignity, could that offer a genuinely different path forward? A path that seeks a shared future rather than just perpetuating a destructive past. Something to think about.